Sports Radio.
Here we go. I can't wait. On a Monday, live in Los Angeles, it's The Herd. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. My hair's a little bit of a mess today. I'm not going to lie. I got a haircut, and I just don't care anymore. I'm living in a hotel for 3 weeks as I move houses. I mean, I'm just out there right now making stuff up every day, eating at a restaurant every day. I don't know what I'm doing. It's good to have you enjoy, Tanner. It's great. Joy has been out for a week. She was in, but quarantine stuff, rules, blah, blah, blah. She's back. I've never missed you more.
I missed you too. I'm very happy to be back.
We're very happy to have you.
It wasn't so difficult when we were both doing the show from not here, but it's, inside baseball technical stuff. I'm really glad to be back.
We're great. Glad to have you. So, over the last couple months, the Niners have been leaking stuff and taking shots at Jimmy Garoppolo. We're not happy. We're not happy. We're not happy. And, of course, it's never attributed to John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan. But after about 9 stories, Jimmy Garoppolo's like, I'm handsome, and I'm over it. And now Jimmy Garoppolo has got people on his side. According to Mike Mayoko, NBC Sports Bay Area, Garoppolo would welcome a trade and would waive a no-trade clause. Garoppolo's like, it's funny with Jimmy. The first thing everybody talks about, the first thing everybody says with him is, man, he's handsome. Nobody talks about his arm. Nobody talks about, boy, he's handsome. It's almost like everybody out there wants him to play a quarterback in a commercial or a movie, not be their quarterback. But here's the definitive argument, and this is what Garoppolo has on his side, and you can't argue it. Belichick loved him. Kyle Shanahan traded for him. And the Niners, with a great roster, stink when he doesn't start. Listen, we all know there's 6 great quarterbacks in this league. We all know. You can put them in any order. I don't care. Mahomes, Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, and Deshaun Watson. They can win games. They can carry a franchise. And in the NFL, you got to be a top 12 quarterback historically to win a Super Bowl. So those are the 6, and Garoppolo's not in it. The next 6, and I put mine up this morning, totally arguable. I'd go Lamar, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, Garoppolo, Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray. You could argue me out of Matt Ryan and put in Dak. It'd be fine. I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep on it. My guess is Carson Wentz halfway through the season with Frank Reich will probably be in there instead of Matt Ryan. That's my next 6. Lamar, Herbert, Carr, Garoppolo, Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray. I think Kyler's got a much higher ceiling than Dak. But you could argue Kirk Cousins, low ceiling to me. You could argue Dak, great kid, not a great arm talent. But Garoppolo's in there. And you can't argue. Belichick loved him. He's pretty smart. Kyle Shanahan traded for him. He's really smart. And the Niners are awful when he doesn't play. So that I've never bought into this. Garoppolo's going to get traded. I know y'all think he's handsome. But when the best defensive coach of my life loves him, meaning he sees him every day at practice and he thinks, he could beat a good defense. And the best young offensive coach in the NFL, in my opinion, loves him. And the Niners roster, which is fairly stacked, is awful. They can't win without him. I think Garoppolo's staying in San Francisco. I know a lot of you look at him like people look at the actor Chris Evans. The first thing you say is, God, he's good looking. Don Cheadle, it's like, what an actor. Ed Norton, what an actor. Mark Ruffalo, what an actor. Chris Evans, God, he's good looking. I know, but Chris Evans has to be able to act, or directors wouldn't keep giving him jobs. Otherwise, movies would just have models. He's got to be able to act. And Jimmy Garoppolo's got to be able to quarterback. Because the Niners are awful when he doesn't play. And they have a good O-line. They have a great tight end. They have good backs. They have an unbelievable front. They have active linebackers. So Jimmy Garoppolo fired back. Garoppolo said, listen, yes, I may be good looking. But I'm tired of being told I'm the problem here. Because in my only year of starting, Jimmy Garoppolo in his life has had 1 full year of starting. Let's review. 69% completion percentage, 101 passer rating, 2-to-1 touchdowns to picks. And Garoppolo's tired of it, and he's got a right to be tired of it. So I watched a lot of NBA over the last 3 days. And we are moving into a space before we get to the real exciting NFL free agent stuff. We got some NBA stuff to talk about here. We're getting real close to the All-Star break, which, of course, is the game nobody this year wants to play. So, Joy and I have talked about this in the last several years. 3 words, go for it. I watched the Boston Celtics twice over the last 3-4 days. Boston would make an accountant proud. They're frugal, they develop players, they draft well, they're smart. They did everything right. They got the smart head coach. They win every trade. And I watched them yesterday blow a lead to a very average team, the New Orleans Pelicans. And my takeaway is, this morning the Celtics are 6th in the East. Their roster doesn't have a legitimate big. Kemba Walker's deteriorating physically, and they don't have enough good players. They've become the Packers. Is that frugal, put their money away, pay off their house. But go look at the last 5 NBA champs. I'll read them for you. The Lakers, they went and got AD. The Raptors, they went and aggressively got Kawhi. The Warriors, they aggressively got KD. The Cavs, they got LeBron and Kevin Love. Heat, they got LeBron and Bosh. That's your last 5. Okay, the Celtics were in the James Harden sweepstakes this offseason. Do you know what Danny Ainge said? The price is a little too high. They were in the Kawhi sweepstakes, and Danny Ainge said, the price is a little uncomfortable for us. They were in the Paul George sweepstakes. They were in the Anthony Davis sweepstakes, and they talked themselves out of it. In the last 35 years, the proud Boston Celtics have a title. Remember the year? They went for it with Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. The Dodgers were really good. They went and got Mookie Betts. The 3 best teams in the NFL at the end of the year were the Buccaneers, total go-for-it organization. Buffalo went and got Stephon Diggs. In Kansas City, nothing but stars. I know other GMs look at the Celtics and go, oh, they're so frugal and they develop and they accumulate draft picks. They're just not that good. They're just not that good. They need another star. They have no size. They tried to trade Kemba Walker in the offseason because they know he can't play back-to-backs. He's deteriorated. Danny Ainge last week on Boston Radio, to his credit, acknowledged you don't have enough good players.
Our roster obviously is not good. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and that's who we are. But this team, where we are, if there's somebody to blame, this is Danny Ainge to blame. This is not Brad Stevens. It's not Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. It's like we're not good enough right now, and we all know that. And, we need to get better.
Who beat the Celtics last year in the Eastern Conference Finals? Miami. They went for it with Jimmy Butler, which I didn't love. It was kind of a risk. Butler had been hard to get along with, temperamental, struggles with some teammates, and the Heat got to the finals. And I know Brooklyn right now is a complete tinderbox emotionally. It's going to blow up eventually. But right now, this morning, they just went 5-0 on a road trip without Kevin Durant. They've won 6 straight between Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. They're offensively virtually unstoppable. And so, Boston for years, they did everything right. It's so Packers. The right coach, the right draft picks. They win every trade. They developed Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart, who have some limitations, but they were so patient, and you don't have enough good players. They're not going to be able to beat Milwaukee or Philadelphia in the playoffs because they'll get owned by Embiid and Giannis' size. They're not offensively gifted enough to beat a Brooklyn. And Boston's one of those teams, you always know your team is kind of limited in any sport when they have to play a certain way to win. Like if this team doesn't play exactly how it's scripted, they always say, baking is just following directions. Cooking is kind of artistry. It's making it up as you go. The Celtics are in the baking category. You have to follow the directions of Brad Stevens perfectly or they can't win. And in the end, congratulations on being patient, saving money, being frugal, and winning trades. It's not that good of a basketball team. You don't have enough good players. Brooklyn in an hour is suddenly better. All right, Big Ben, former teammate now, a legitimate guy, is now calling out Big Ben. top of next hour, calling right, calling wrong. I think it's my favorite calling right, calling wrong in months. I really like it.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Hi, it's Laverne Cox, and on my new podcast, The Laverne Cox Show, we're ripping the Band-Aid off trauma resilience, dating, diet culture, dating, white supremacy, dating.
Okay, I'm not gonna get explicit, but just because you cute, like I'm not going to.
I know what you were gonna say, yes, girl. That's in there. And honey, we have a lot of fun along the way.
You have a lot of lesbian fans who love your femininity and glamour, and they just really, really want you.
And I want us to talk openly about the difficult things we all face as humans, and as humans in America.
Racist white people in the United States will sign their own death certificates. They will vote for policies that crush them, no safety nets, no health care, because they feel too much like entitlements, and those are folks of color, right?
Listen to the Laverne Cox Show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe and share.
Big Ben is now running out of people who are supporting him. The Steeler quarterback, if he just retired, would save the Steelers $19 million, and they could start their search for another quarterback soon. I think they'd go after Sam Darnold. They already have Dwayne Haskins. But Marquise Pouncey, his center, that was Ben's guy. He retired. Kevin Colbert, the GM's always been Ben's guy. His comments recently, lukewarm on Big Ben. Mike Tomlin, interestingly quiet. Mike Tomlin now is not talking. And now a former teammate who played with Ben for 11 years, Ike Taylor. They were in 3 Super Bowls. They won a couple of them. Ike Taylor is out on Big Ben. Here it is.
I think 7 should shut it down. And the reason why I think 7 should shut it down, he's done everything he possibly can. You set in the back a year or 2 or 3. I think, and the reason why I think you set in the back is because you've seen the progression in Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow before he got hurt, and Baker Mayfield. So we talking about 3 young quarterbacks in one division. Who you gonna pick last? I'm not talking about the accolades. I'm not talking about the Super Bowls. I'm talking about 2020. Right. Who are you picking last?
Ike Taylor is not wrong. What does Big Ben do well? Accuracy? No. Pre-snap genius? No. Deep ball? No. Mobility? No. Everybody else in that division, Burrow, Baker, and Lamar, have a specialty. Big Ben was never fully committed. It was fine when he was in his athletic prime. Who is in his corner now? Ain't the GM, not the coach, not a former. Ike Taylor was a real player. Ike Taylor was a good teammate. He was Ben's guy. Center retired. Ike's out. Mike's out. Kevin Colbert's out. So again, I'm a big believer that if you're super talented, I'll put up with your crap. But once you're not as talented, your lack of commitment, and Ben is the anti-Brady. He is the anti-Russell Wilson. He is the anti-Brady. He just did it on talent. That ages poorly when you're not committed during and in off seasons. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Ben's 39 next week. He is an old 39.
Well, it's what you said. He's the opposite of Tom Brady. Everybody chooses to handle their career and their bodies differently. We talked about it last week. The level of commitment and discipline it takes to be someone like a LeBron James or a Tom Brady or a Russell Wilson, when you spend that amount of money on your body and you don't eat strawberries or tomatoes because they cause inflammation. Like you eat avocado ice cream. I don't know, maybe avocado ice cream is good, but like that's a sacrifice. I try to not buy snacks for the house. That's my level of commitment.
Yeah, same here. And I fail at it.
Right, yes, I have chips now. It's a lot. So the Panthers made a handful of roster moves last week to clear up an additional $25.7 million in cap space. They now have $40 million in cap space, which is the 6th most in the league.
Interesting.
And this could be part of a plan to go after Deshaun Watson. Carolina reportedly wants to make a run at Deshaun if the Texans make him available. Watson has set accounts for $15.94 million against the 2021 cap, and then jumped to $40.4 million in 2022.
So this makes me think that Houston and Carolina have talked, and Houston said no, and Carolina's like, okay, we're going to have to give up more. Because Teddy Bridgewater stopped following the Panthers on social media this weekend, meaning stuff leaks out. Nobody can keep a secret.
Right.
So this feels like they talked and Houston said no. But it wasn't like no, it was no. And Carolina's trying to clean the shelves out a little bit and give themselves more space.
Houston has all the leverage here. They've got Deshaun. And now Deshaun has the no trade clause, so he can choose where he goes at the end of the day. But there's no value in Houston coming out and saying Deshaun Watson is available that immediately lowers what they can get for him. If they're like, no, we're not interested, they're just gonna keep throwing jewels at their feet until they budge.
Yeah.
They can keep Deshaun if they want. Obviously, he's under contract. Things will get very ugly. Deshaun could sit out for the year. Like, it could turn to a disaster. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But it does, like, the story is, when is they're going to make Deshaun available? They're not going to, like, I don't think they're going to make Deshaun available. I think they're just going to wait until someone comes with the insane riches that they can't turn down, because you're not going to get value back for Deshaun, obviously. Like, there's no equal trade there. Either it's not going to be a Stafford-Goff kind of swap, or otherwise, why would you be moving off of someone like Deshaun Watson? So I think it's just a waiting game.
I'm just rooting for trades at this point. I'm not going to lie. I'm just rooting to come in every day with a trade.
I mean, quarterback trades are unbelievable.
Last week, Carson Wentz got traded a minute before the show. I'm like, okay, I don't have to prep.
Yep.
So I'm going to talk for 3
blow
hours.
the show up. So Cam Newton had plenty of critics during his season.
I
with
did
the
not like
Patriots.
this. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to defend Cam.
Yeah, so we got to discuss this. So he was at a youth football tournament. This video has gone viral. And a kid started giving him a hard time about being a free agent. Here's the video.
You're a free agent. You're a free agent. You're about to be full. I'm rich. You're about to be full. I'm rich. You're about to be full. I'm rich. You're a free agent. Free agent. I'm rich. They still free. Where's your dad here? Let me talk to your dad. What's your dad? You're a free agent. Where's your dad? You're a free agent. Talk to your dad. You're a free agent. You ass. Talk to. Let me. Where's your dad? Where's your father?
I don't like that kid doing that. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of that. If my son did that, and I saw that video, and my son got home, we'd have a long talk, like about respecting people.
Cam Newton has won a Heisman. He made it to the NFL, number 1 overall pick. Made it to a Super Bowl, played in a Super Bowl, and won a league MVP. Let's not get crazy about what Cam Newton's career has been. He has, by every standard measurable, had an extremely successful career in the NFL.
And an endorsement career.
Of course.
Like, he's been all...
He's a superstar. But
he's
the
like
superstar aside, he actually has reached those milestones. I mean, Phillip Rivers played for how many years? He never went to the Super Bowl. He never played in a Super Bowl. He never won a league MVP. Like, we're talking about somebody who has had an extreme amount of success. If he retired today, he has had an unbelievably successful NFL career. I think that sometimes the conversations about players can trickle down into, like, just two kids. Like, this. I do want to say, though, this is a kid. Kind of the way the story's been covered. I feel like people, like, it was like a headline, like, Cam Newton was heckled. Like, this is a child.
But he is a high school
he's a
senior
in high school. Yes, and this is a good lesson for him about respect, to your point.
You can drive an automobile as a senior in high school, and you're like a year away from being drafted.
It makes me a little uncomfortable. It is still a child.
If your son did this or daughter did this, would you be mad?
I would do things we can't talk about on television.
That's what I'm saying. If my son did that, he would get home and I'd go, you're going to call Cam Newton and apologize to him.
Well, he did issue an apology online. He issued a long apology. He said he let his football competitive side get the best of him.
Who, the kid did or Cam?
No, the kid did. The kid did. I mean, Cam couldn't have handled it better. Like, Cam is volunteering his time to be there and teach the youth of America football. He doesn't need to do that. He's very, as he said, very, very rich. He doesn't have to be there. He's volunteering his time to be there. I thought Cam handled it perfectly. Like, that's how you handle that
Cam
situation.
generally, I think Cam's a fairly joyful spirit. Like, even in New England this year, he's pretty joyful. I mean, I have my issues with Cam. He's pretty joyful. There's no, like, anger.
Well, Cam also has kids, so it would be very odd of him not to know how to handle a kid, even if they are being extremely disrespectful. So J.J. Watt has some options, in his free agency decision, but he's not going to rush to pick his next team. Someone asked him on Twitter if he was going to sign with another team.
Oh, that's funny.
And he replied, I scroll through DoorDash for like an hour before I pick a restaurant, man.
I love that.
You're going to have to give me a second to choose a new team and city.
That's my favorite tweet of the weekend by J.J. Watt.
It's strong. It's true, you know? I mean, I try to limit my options on the ordering apps because that's what happens. You stay there for an hour and then it takes another 45 minutes to get your food.
I can't do DoorDash with my daughter.
She takes too long?
And I'm like,
women, we have a really hard time picking.
I go to Fresh Brothers Pizza, 10 wings, Greek salad.
Colin, why do you do every time you do this to me? I order pizza.
Oh, it's so delicious.
Every time. It's like Pavlovian. Every time you say it, I order pizza.
Fresh Brothers Pizza.
Stop it.
They're Mediterranean. No, I go to the same thing. I go to every time. I just go, boom, wings, pizza, Seacrest.
I try to do my favorites too. So according to Fox Bet, J.J. Watt's odds for his next team, the Browns are the best odds.
I don't buy that at all.
Browns and the Packers.
Who's setting that? Is that Vegas?
Fox Bet.
You're wrong.
Browns, Packers, Steelers, Bills, and the Ravens.
Who's setting these odds? I don't believe the Cleveland thing at all.
He said he wants a quarterback, supporting personnel, and the money to be right. Now,
they have Olivier Vernon and Myles Garrett.
He may be being patient, but he also might be waiting until the new salary cap is officially set, so teams might be waiting to see how much money they have.
Wouldn't you want to go to a consistent winner?
Yeah, of course. I don't think the Browns is a good fit for him either way. I mean, just aside from that, to your point, like that's not a place that needs defensive help.
Yeah, they've got Myles Garrett.
Especially on the line.
Yeah, they need linebacker. Their back seven, they need to draft it like crazy. That's the weakness of the team.
Yeah.
All right, Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Yeah. Usually I grew up, the Vegas usually has a step ahead. I don't buy the Cleveland. It's nothing against Cleveland. If you're telling me he's got his money in his Hall of Fame, J.J. Watt said. Now it's about, I'm going to go somewhere that consistently wins. Green Bay, Kansas City. I think Buffalo right now be an interesting, they need a pass rusher bad.
Well, I'm surprised the Titans aren't on this list because they were in the mix last week, so I don't know why they're not up there either.
Dave Wanstead told us their scheme is perfect for J.J. Watt. So there you go. Peter Schrager now joining us, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing, Fox Sports NFL reporter, and we got a lot of it. All right, so there's a lot of stuff out on Deshaun Watson. The Carolina stuff's interesting, Schrags, because, first of all, they got a super aggressive owner. That matters, okay? That one of the reasons Green Bay doesn't get in a lot of these deals, they don't have an owner. So you got an owner who's got an ego, and he's going to say, go for it. The new coach is an offensive guy. I would get that. And listen, they got McCaffrey. They've got some things they could trade. So the Deshaun Watson thing, part of me thinks Carolina's perfect. He played in that part of the country. Where are we right now with Deshaun Watson? Is Carolina the leader? Is there a leader?
First off, Colin, it's great seeing you back in the saddle. Excited to be here. And Carolina might be the leaders in our world or in our own heads, but I can tell you after spending the weekend speaking to teams across the league, and this is the damper for our world, Houston is not even taking phone calls right now. And we're now heading towards March. This is not January or February, but Nick Caserio, the GM, is still not even listening to offers. So we can concoct the McCaffrey and Bridgewater, Robbie Anderson, and 12 first-round picks for Watson deals all we want, and it's fun fodder for 3 hours in the middle of a Monday where it's snowing here in New York to discuss about, who knows, maybe the Jets give Quinnen Williams and Sam Darnold. Until Houston starts picking up the phone, it's hard for us to really gauge what is reality. So here's when I would say it's time to really start considering this. It's time to really start considering this right before the draft, because free agency is going to happen. The carousel is going to go. Teams are going to start filling up. But there are going to be first-round prospects drafted at quarterback in the top 15 this year. There might be up to 4 or 5 of those guys. If we go through the entire free agency period, and Watson's still not traded, and Houston's still not listening, and then we get close to the draft, and Houston is still not entertaining offers, well, then what are we doing? We're in a bind, and they probably won't make any trade at all. They believe that Deshaun Watson is going to be a Houston Texan week 1 of the NFL season. Now, Watson, through his people, has said he was requested a trade. He's been very polite about this. Watson has not come out strongly and said, I will never wear that uniform again. And until he says that, I know those Houston guys. I know Casario. I know what they've got there. They're not going to trade him 80 cents on the dollar because, well, we don't want an unhappy Deshaun Watson. They're going to do everything in their possible repertoire to make this work and to bridge this gap and to somehow not trade away a 25-year-old franchise quarterback for a bunch of picks and maybe running backs and wide receivers.
I want to check in on two. So Wentz and Stafford are off the market. Let's start with Wentz. I do think it's going to work because Frank Reich gave Andrew Luck his most efficient season and Carson Wentz his most efficient season. So I think it'll work. There's a little rebuilding with Carson Wentz, but that's okay. That happens to players all the time in a lot of positions. I didn't talk to you last week. I mean, it looks like the Colts just won that thing slam dunk. I mean, what's your takeaway on the Wentz to the Colts for almost nothing?
It's amazing. That one was 30 cents on the dollar. And, the only way you can justify to say, well, the Colts take on Carson Wentz, and then you're assuming that Carson Wentz is completely broken and is done. What's amazing is that now that Carson Wentz is out of Philly, now the dirty laundry starts coming out on Carson Wentz, which we didn't hear all season long, that he couldn't handle the drafting of Jalen Hurts, that once he was benched for Jalen Hurts, he went into a hole and crawled up in a ball and just didn't have it in him, and he was never happy with Foles still being around. All that stuff conveniently comes out of Philly necessarily, or just gets into the media after he's gone. The truth of the matter is a no-win situation for the Eagles. Okay, great. Maybe Jalen Hurts is the next greatest thing. Maybe they draft a quarterback. The fact of the matter is 2 years ago, they gave Carson Wentz this huge contract. It didn't work out, and they did not get what they thought they valued him as in the trade market. The other side of this is, what if Wentz isn't good anymore? What if Wentz isn't, all of a sudden resurrected by Frank Reich like everyone's assuming? What if Carson Wentz is as bad as he looked last year? If that's the case, well, the Colts are paying a lot for Carson Wentz, and this is a team that's one quarterback away from being a contender. Did they pick the right guy? We'll see, because we know Phillip Rivers and Jacoby Brissett are likely not walking through that door next year. Can Carson Wentz win more games than Phillip Rivers? I'm not so sure about that.
Matt Stafford, what's the early reports on that deal from the Rams?
A love affair like you've never heard. I mean, this is me talking to these Rams guys, and it's like the happy Sean McVay like we've never seen. And maybe that's not fair to Jared Goff. Maybe that's just unfair. But guess what? It's the truth. McVay, they have a new offensive line coach that's going to be hired in the next couple of days. They have a new defensive coordinator. It's fresh blood in Los Angeles. And for as good as Jared Goff was, and he got them to the Super Bowl, and as unfair as it might seem to say this, they believe that Stafford takes them to an entirely different level on offense than what Jared Goff could possibly do. So I know it's February, we're going to be in March soon, and these things don't matter until August and September. I can just tell you there is real excitement within that building, and that they believe that McVay's offense can be run as well as it could possibly run with Matthew Stafford at quarterback, when with Jared Goff there, it was fine, but there was a limit and there was a cap to it. Stafford could take him to the next level, and I can tell you from the Stafford side, this guy is thrilled and excited to get started. So who cares what happens in February? I could just tell you they're in a different place now as an organization than they were a couple of weeks back before they made the trade.
So Tampa's got some decisions to make on some names. For instance, just my opinion, Leonard Fournette, I could let Leonard Fournette go and sleep at night. Shaq Barrett, I'd lose some sleep. They got 5 or 6 guys. Gut feeling on who's an absolute keeper and who they kind of move off of.
It's a great question, Colin, because I think we get caught up in the Super Bowl parade and the confetti, and then a week later it's like, oh crap, we have to find a way to pay for all these guys. They're not just no names. Colin, we're talking Levante David, who might have been their best defensive player this year, is a free agent. Shaq Barrett is a free agent. Chris Godwin's a free agent. Then you get all the old guys, and I say old with quotes, but Gronk and Sue and Fournette and Antonio Brown and even the kicker Ryan Succop's a free agent. You can only use the franchise tag on one guy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. It's going to be Godwin or Barrett. That's what I'm hearing out of Tampa. Godwin or Barrett are going to get the franchise tag, and they're going to try to convince the other one of those two to maybe still come back without taking a break-the-bank contract. And then they're going to try to do the same thing with all the veterans, whether it be Sue, whether it be Fournette. Hey, we can't pay a top dollar, but we can pay it pretty good. Wasn't it fun last year winning a Super Bowl ring? Wasn't it fun playing for BA? But I think it's Godwin or Barrett, and I don't think even Tampa Bay knows who's going to get that deal. And they hope they can get everyone back, including Levante David and the rest. It's just so hard because they have so many players hitting free agency.
Yeah, it's funny about that. I would have a hard time giving up a good pass rusher, Schrags. I like Chris Godwin, but God, the NFL gets 28 wide receivers a year. And I got Mike Evans and Antonio Brown. And by the way, O.J. Howard comes back.
Scotty Miller comes back.
Yeah, I like Chris Godwin, but he's almost a luxury with that team. I got to ask you one other quick question.
Yeah.
I said this the other day that let's say the Jets move off Sam Darnold, okay?
Okay.
So you're going to tell me in the best defensive coach division in football, Belichick's the best defensive coach ever, Brian Flores looks like a superstar, and Sean McDermott is top 5. You're going to bring a quarterback from the Mountain West in with the worst O-line and go, good luck, kid. And I'm thinking, boy, I don't even know if Robert Saleh can coach. I'd have a hard time with a new coach, a rookie quarterback. Is there any shot the Jets go, we're going to run it back with Darnold and get a bunch of picks for the number 2 slot?
Yes, or we're going to run it back with Darnold and take a really good player with the number 2 pick and maybe get another offensive lineman because they hit a home run with Becton. Look, I know those Jets guys. They haven't made any decisions yet. They haven't. And I know we love mock drafts, and we're also assuming that a BYU quarterback is going to be the starter for the Jets next year, and away we go. I'd say slow down on that, Colin. I'm with you on this. They're still evaluating a lot of things. And Sam Darnold in that offense might be a different version of Sam Arnold than he was in the Adam Gase offense.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me. Schrags, it's great seeing you. I don't know what you're doing your little thing here from, but it looks like, is this your new office at home? It looks very...
New office.
Nice.
Put it behind me. It's got a screen. Colin, I'll just say this. I know you're not from New York when you're lusting over the Mediterranean pizza at Fresh Brothers. What are you doing? Fresh Brothers. You want to go? You're going to go to Sparrow next, and Colin, come on! I'm in New York here. They have a Fresh Brothers in the airport in LA. You're lusting over that. Ooh, it's delicious. Get out of here.
Peter Schrager, good talking to you, buddy.
Love your back, Colin. Happy to see you.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Good to have you. Yeah, listen, even my pizza choices.
I don't appreciate the Fresh Brothers standard. Cauliflower pizza is great.
Listen, pizza's hard to butcher.
You can't talk to New Yorkers about pizza, though.
They're very snobby.
You can't talk to New Yorkers
I'm
about
a Seattleite, so don't talk to me about coffee. I mock Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, I'm from Pittsburgh, so don't talk to me about Permani sandwiches.
Right? Everybody's got a snob thing. Coming up next, bad news for a team that we thought was going to be great for a long time, and they were great, and then they're not good, and it was all kind of a mirage. And most of you love them. And we'll talk about that coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
I'm Whitney Dow. And I'm Erica Alexander. And our podcast, Reparations, The Big Payback, explores the legacy of slavery and how white people have exploited, pillaged, and tortured black people for centuries. And now on the... iHeartRadio is number 1 for podcasts, but don't take our word for it. Every Thursday, listen to Reparations, The Big Payback, produced by Color Farm Media and The Black Effect.
On the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Gotta say, it was wonderful yesterday. The weather in Los Angeles was just about as good. You know how you get those end of winter, beginning of spring kind of days or weeks? And between the pandemic in Los Angeles, bars have been closed for, a year, and you can't eat outside, and we've had a very restrictive state. Not saying it's right or wrong, but it's been pretty punitive to small business in Los Angeles County. And yesterday was just a beautiful 70-degree day, and it was unbelievable to watch the reaction. People were so happy. They were drinking mimosas in the morning, and where I was at, there were just tables filled everywhere. Everywhere you walked in my town, you still can't go inside a restaurant, but there does appear to be a little sunshine on the horizon here as the vaccines are being introduced around the country, and the numbers are plummeting. I was in a hospital myself 2 weeks ago in the emergency room, and a Saturday night was empty. So cross your fingers on this stuff, but it was just a lot of happy people this weekend. Just people need to be social. They do. People need people, and I love seeing it. So Lakers played Miami yesterday. I don't take a lot from it. Miami won. They should have won by more. The Lakers almost stole it. The Lakers are in a shooting slump right now, regardless of Anthony Davis being out and Dennis Schroeder being out. They just can't shoot. Miami's an interesting story. So, and this happens in sports, and fans don't want to admit it. We think, the minute you're good, you're going to be good forever. We think dynasties are going to last forever. And we think sometimes we forget that sports, you see this every year in March Madness, where there's a team that gets hot, lightning in a bottle. They're not that talented. They have all sorts of flaws, but they play with confidence. They maybe get a break or two in the seeding or the playoffs, and you look up and George Mason and VCU are knocking off teams, and they don't really have NBA players in March Madness, and you're like, wow, how did they get here? It's lightning in a bottle. Not every team that gets deep into the playoffs is great. There's breaks, there's momentum. And Miami last year shocked everybody. They were a 5th seed, and then they ended up in the finals. And I think they got a lot of breaks. Number one, they were super healthy. A lot of teams in the bubble had injuries. Older teams sort of unraveled. The older NBA players missed their wives. They missed their kids. And outside of the Lakers, every other veteran NBA team kind of folded and underachieved. But the Eastern older teams, Milwaukee, just didn't play well. And then nobody had a book on Duncan Robinson or Tyler Hero. And Bam, until the finals, was playing very good basketball. And here came Miami. And Jimmy Butler had this energy, and everybody was feeding off it. And Eric Spoelstra, of course, is an excellent coach. And you look up today, and Miami's just not that talented. Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson are incredibly limited players, both defensive liabilities. If you run them off the three-point line, they don't have much of a game. Bam is not good enough when Jimmy Butler's hurt to carry a team. They're 3-9 when Jimmy Butler's not available. There's a reason that Pat Riley went after James Harden hard when Harden was in Houston. Like, they just don't have enough. They need another guy. But it also goes to show you this happens. There are lightning in, we talked about Cam Newton. Cam had a lightning in the bottle year. His division was awful. He stayed healthy. It was a weird year where Carolina met Arizona in the NFC Championship. Green Bay wasn't as good that year. And all of a sudden you look up and Cam Newton's in the Super Bowl. And you're like, it kind of happened once. Everything kind of worked out. Doesn't take anything away from Cam or George Mason or VCU or the Miami Heat. But I'm watching them yesterday, and I'm like, they're not special. Right now, they would not be a playoff team. Now, they're not many games out of it, but they're 4 games under 500, and Jimmy Butler needs help. And now there's a book on Tyler Hero, and even Eric Spoelstra, who's a great coach, doesn't have all the answers. Speaking of Cam Newton, I thought this was interesting. So Cam Newton had that little goofy dust-up with that kid. Not a fan of that. I'm a fan of Cam after that. But Cam was talking over the course of the weekend. He said, there are not 32 quarterbacks better than me. Here's Cam Newton sort of defending his space.
My pride won't even allow me to do that. Listen, bro, there's not 32 guys better than me. Put it like that. So you're asking me,
where you at?
I'm not 32.
He's probably right. It's interesting. So I'm reading a story this morning where New England is starting to feel a little bit like the Celtics. They were in on Matt Stafford, and they've been in on Carson Wentz, but the price was simply too high. You got to stop trying to win trades, and you're going to have to win some games. Right now, New England drafts 15th. They're the only team in the NFL that feels kind of hopeless at quarterback unless they bring Cam back. I think Cam's coming back. If you don't bring Cam back, who you getting with the 15th pick? San Francisco's not trading Garoppolo. They got no backup plan. Jets are not going to trade you Sam Darnold in division. Marcus Mariota can't stay healthy. He's reckless. Wentz is off the market. Goff's off the market. Stafford's off the market. And to be honest, you can't get Deshaun Watson, although he'd be great. You don't have the draft capital, and you don't have any players. Carolina can give you Christian McCaffrey. They can give you all their picks. Who do you have? Stephon Gilmore's past his prime. You have no skill players I want. You don't have an A running back, an A receiver, or an A tight end. So, it's funny about Cam. We all kind of think like, oh, they'll move off Cam. To who? I think he's coming back. I think you can make the argument, second year with Josh McDaniels, They went 7-9 with a bunch of opt-outs. They got a ton of cap space. They're a team that should really go after Allen Robinson, the wide receiver at Chicago. They're still, even if they sign Cam to a 2-year deal, they're not going to pay him like market value. He's making nothing. You can pay him like $18 million a year. So, and there are other teams you have questions at quarterback. Big Ben, but he was pretty good early last year. Jags, they'll get their guy in the draft. Saints, well, Jameis Winston threw for 5,000 yards 2 years ago, and Taysom Hill in 4 starts went 3-1. If you don't bring Cam back, you're hopeless. What are you going to do? So, New England's got a little Celtic. Boston's one of those very kind of hyper-academic markets, MIT and Harvard, and they're very much the Red Sox and Patriots and Celtics in analytics. You can try to win trades, but you got to win games. And if Cam's not coming back, you tell me what the answer is. Because according to this, they didn't want to pay for Wentz, and they didn't want to pay for Stafford. All right, congrats. And the Celtics didn't want to pay for Paul George, James Harden, and Kawhi. And today, the Celtics, they're not very good. Hour 2, Colin right, Colin wrong. Live in LA. First hour flew by. In LA, it's hour 2. Live in Los Angeles, it's The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Not gonna lie, my hair is a bit of a tire fire this morning, but I'm okay with it. We're living in a hotel for the next 3 weeks, and by the way, I called the hotel staff this morning when I got up. I said, can you guys make me a coffee? I'm not paying a lot for this room. How about you make me a coffee? And you can tell when you wake up Monday morning at a hotel, nobody's there because everybody checks out on Sunday. Right. There are like 7 people making a coffee for me. I like being pampered like that. It's the way my life should be. I just push a button and 7 people bring me coffee. That's the new reality for me.
Well, you live there now.
I kind of do. They had weddings all weekend. I was like, I just sat looking at the weddings and looking at the people all drinking and mimosas at 8 in the morning.
It's like you're like a writer. You should write something.
Yeah, like Hemingway, except no talent. Yeah, exactly.
Hemingway by the sea,
That's Joy Taylor. It's great to have you in. Where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong, brought to you by Jersey Mike Subs. Tired of cooking at home? Change it up without getting up. Jersey Mike, go to their app, no contact delivery, no contact at the door. Pick up Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above, and here we go. Colin right, Colin wrong on a Monday.
Where Colin was right.
Carson Wentz is out of Philadelphia and now an Indianapolis Colt. The day before, I did a segment that was borderline tampering, trying to get him to Indianapolis. I think this is the best fit. Carson Wentz tends to move a little too much for my taste, but with the Colts, he or Sam Darnold work because they wouldn't have to be as reckless, because they wouldn't have to leave the pocket as much. I think the Colts now are probably just one more wide receiver or tight end target for being a team that can win a Super Bowl, but Carson Wentz to Indy is what I was hoping for and what I got.
Where Colin was wrong.
The Brooklyn Nets, well, what do you know? They've won 6 straight. They went 5-0 on their West Coast roadie. They're actually 12-2 against top teams. So this isn't one of those fake NBA winning streaks where you play the dregs of the league and go 8-0. They've played 14 top teams. They've won 12. And by the way, Kevin Durant's been nursing a hamstring, I think, and James Harden took over. So 1-6 straight, 5-0 on their road trip. There's a lot of ways it could go sideways, but as of now, I'm wrong. It's been great.
Where Colin was right.
Well, I've been saying this. I didn't buy Pittsburgh all year. I said Big Ben is old and high maintenance, and now Ike Taylor's calling him out. Now Kevin Colbert, the GM, gave him a lukewarm, supportive PR drop last week. And, I think he was awful down the stretch. Last 5 games, he was 1-4. He had 8 picks. His lack of commitment has caught up to him. And this is kind of what I've thought Big Ben has been, a little coddled over the last several years, and it's catching up to him.
Where Colin was wrong.
For years, I said Howie Roseman and the Eagles were well run. They're not. Story out this morning, the Eagles got fleeced in the deal, and they know it. Listen, they're not drafting well. The last Pro Bowler they drafted was Carson Wentz. I think they butchered the Jalen Hurts-Carson Wentz relationship. I think the roster in spots is too old. I think there's way too much ego in the front office. Howie Roseman ran off Chip Kelly, who, by the way, I ran into this weekend on his bicycle. So Philadelphia, I thought they were just this great franchise, and right now they're a mess. And they got too much ego and chaos in the front office.
Where Colin was right?
The Denver Broncos reportedly are looking to replace Drew Lock, who to me is too casual, a little too concerned with being cool, throws too many 50-50 balls in the air, and I sold my Drew Lock stock mid-season. Now, I said before the year, I said there's something there, and I still think he's talented. And people have said, well, why are you moving off him? It's not complicated. I have more information and more games. I do believe you got to give a quarterback, even in this era, 15, 16, 20 games. But since he was drafted, he has the lowest completion percentage in the NFL. Again, I think he's got sort of a Jay Cutler thing where he's a little casual, a little bit of ego, not playing with enough urgency. And according to reports, John Elway would move off tomorrow.
Where Colin was wrong.
Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers are number one in the East. I always thought he was silly, a little flaky, super talented. But he's sort of what Giannis isn't, which is he's got some finesse. He's got a little mid-range jumper. He can shoot. He's got a little touch. His offensive game is layered. You stop him here, he can go there. Whereas with Giannis, I kind of feel like there's a ceiling and limitations. All his numbers are up this year. Doc Rivers certainly deserves credit, but I just, I always thought he was talented. That's obvious. He's got a lot of shack where there are times you're like, he shouldn't be able to do what he's doing at 7-1, but he's really played well. And the chemistry with him and Ben Simmons is working, and I'm wrong.
Where Colin was right?
Oh. According to a very legitimate reporter, Barry Jackson, Miami Herald, the Dolphins are interested in trading for Deshaun Watson. First of all, Deshaun's talented. But this goes to the core of something I believe to be true. Tua's limited, and the Dolphins deep down will support him publicly, but they know he's limited. Listen, if you're trying to move off your quarterback 9 starts in, you're seeing stuff at practice you don't love. 3 different games last year, Tua had under 100 yards passing. He was benched twice for an old guy. And in the end, in a league where there's so much special, Tua looks pretty formulaic. There's a certain way he's got to play. Doesn't throw particularly well when he's rushed. And the Dolphins appear to know it.
Where Colin was wrong.
Joe Milton is the 6th scholarship quarterback to transfer at Michigan under Jim Harbaugh. He's had 4 starting quarterbacks transfer in 6 years. Listen, if you'd have asked me the one thing he would have gotten right at Michigan, I would have said he'll get the quarterback right. He just wears guys out. For the life of me, Andrew Luck appears to be the exception, not the rule. I still think Harbaugh's a good coach, but, at some point, no Michigan quarterback has made it to a 4th season under Jim Harbaugh, and Jim Harbaugh's got to own it. He's wearing these young kids out, and he's got to figure out a way to either separate from the process, but Milton's another one. In, out, won't finish there.
Where Colin was right?
I've defended Derek Carr for years. I said he's a top 10, 12 quarterback, and last week the story came out that the best young GM in the NFL, arguably Chris Ballard of the Colts, called the Raiders and wanted to make a deal for Derek Carr. And the Raiders smartly said, we're hanging up the phone. In the last 2 years, Derek Carr has 48 TDs, 17 picks, and 101 passer rating. That's in a new system. That's with a lot of young receivers, a new tight end, a lot of moving parts, and dealing with John Gruden's, volume. So Derek Carr is absolutely a top 12 quarterback in this league. I've said there's a lot of Tony Romo here. Good arm, not great, but he can move. There are certain throws he makes, some timing throws he makes. I think he makes them just about as well as anybody in the NFL. And finally the Raiders. To me, he's the life preserver in a million questions for the Las Vegas Raiders right now. He's the one thing, he and the tight end are the 2 things I really like.
Where Colin was right?
All you Zion doubters, do you realize in February, listen to this, Zion not only averaged 27 per game, he shot 66% from the floor. Nobody in a month has duplicated that since Charles Barkley in 1983. Yesterday, he took over the game, had 24 in the second half against the Celtics. It is amazing to me, all the doubters with Zion. Folks, 66%. He is right now, indisputably, the most guaranteed basket. He's the best 2 in the league. Nope, now he's not going to get you 3s, but you can't tell me if you're shooting 66% on 2s, he's the best 2 in the league. And how many games has he played? I don't even know, 50? This kid is... And if you watch that game yesterday, he was bringing the ball down the floor. He is such a unique body type. And the other thing, his ability to jump quickly, like he is just boom up. He gets 40 inches off the floor. For a guy that weighs 285, his explosiveness is sick. There's just nobody else in the league like him. So, I can sit here and just watch his highlights all day. I love watching him play. All right, good stuff. I got Rick Bucher next. We got Justin Turner of the Dodgers. Best roster in a decade in Major League Baseball. Dodgers they added Trevor Bauer. That's the last time you and I was it one of the last times we worked together? Justin Turner for the Dodgers showing up today. Rick Bucher is coming up next. And some more thoughts on Deshaun Watson. Peter King's got some new stuff coming out today.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Looking for a new podcast? You do not want to miss Under the Influence. I'm your host, Joe Piazza, and I'm taking you into the depths of the mom internet, a place that preys on some new mothers while also minting millionaires.
Instagram ruined women for a time. Influencers certainly feel the pressure. How could I have a baby and not share it?
Welcome to Mumstagram. It's not for influencers, it's for under the influences.
Join me to dive down this rabbit hole and find out how the commodification of motherhood is driving a lot of us to the edge of our sanity. Listen to Under the Influence with Joe Piazza on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Black Rifle Coffee. Coffee company serving premium coffee to people who love America. www.blackriflecoffee.com/herd. 20% off your first coffee club order. NBA now gets interesting. We are getting to the All-Star break. That's the game apparently nobody actually wants to play, but they're going to. They've named starters and reserves, and Rick Bucher's been covering the NBA for a long, long time, and he now joins me live. All right, so I watched the Celtics melt away a lead yesterday. And I sit there and I think to myself, I've been watching the Packers for years. They're patient. They develop players. They're frugal. They're smart. And they never have enough stars. And I watch the Celtics, and everybody loves Danny Ainge. And I watched him yesterday, and I'm like, they need more good players. And in the end, has this grand, patient experiment failed this morning?
It has. Now, I do have to throw a certain asterisk on it because it's an incomplete picture right now. They are missing both Kemba Walker, the real Kemba Walker, and Marcus Smart. So they're playing without a true playmaker on the floor. And my concern about them coming into the season was that they were not going to have enough size. That Daniel Theis and Tristan Thompson were simply not going to be enough to get it done. But I think this is a clash of what our expectations are, that the Boston Celtics are supposed to be turning the corner and now be a title contender right there with the Bucks and the Heat and the Brooklyn Nets. And the fact of the matter is, Danny Ainge is right. When he said his roster, it put it on him. His roster is not good enough. He's 100% correct. Their roster, they are a 500 team, and by and large, they have 500 talent.
Yeah. So, are you surprised that Miami has not necessarily unraveled? They've just regressed to the mean a little bit. Are you surprised by it?
I actually am surprised because I just thought that their attention to detail during the regular season, they're a little bit like the San Antonio Spurs East. I didn't know that they would be as good as they were in the bubble, but but I didn't expect them to fall this far. But what we're seeing is, one, the absence of Jay Crowder. Never realized how valuable he was as a defensive piece. Jimmy Butler has missed time, has been in and out of the lineup. And two young guys who were on fire in the bubble, Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, have been exposed to a certain extent. Teams are exploiting them at the defensive end, and they're not knocking shots down as consistently as they did in the bubble. It took me back, Colin, to remembering that when we were getting ready to go into the bubble, I got this sense that there was a lot of teams that were looking at it with uncertainty, and the Miami Heat approached it with as opportunity. Like, they got together, they're in Florida, they saw it as, hey, this is a short run, and if we just attention to detail and we do the right things, we could make something out of this, and indeed they did. But what we are seeing is that was a reflection of them taking advantage of the bubble circumstances and not necessarily who they really are.
They may be a tinderbox emotionally, but are you surprised how quickly Brooklyn's become good?
Not really, because I thought that they were going to be the best offense in the league when Harden first joined them, and I thought that was going to be tough to compete against on a night-in, night-out basis. I don't look at them, because of their recent swing, as being as good as everybody suggests that they are. Yes, they beat the Lakers, but they beat the Lakers without Anthony Davis and Dennis Schroeder. Yes, they beat the Clippers, but they beat them based on what is wrong with the NBA right now, which is that flopping is a winning strategy. James Harden, without question, flopped on the last play and was rewarded for it. And the load management approach to the game has just completely gotten out of hand, where you're trying to win a game and you decide, well, sorry, Paul, you've hit your Paul George, you've hit your limits, your minute restriction.
Right.
We're going to have to sit you for the final 3 minutes. If neither of those things happen, if you don't reward the ridiculous flop and you don't sit Paul George, the Clippers win this game because the Nets, for as dynamic as they are offensively, could not slow them down. Their defense could not come through in the final minutes, and that is my great issue with them. As dynamic as they are offensively, defensively, they're still susceptible.
You and I talked about this in the podcast last night about Anthony Davis, that there's very few what I would call really ones in the NBA. I think Dame Lillard is, LeBron is, Chris Paul is, Steph Curry is, where emotionally and physically, every night, same guy. Giannis is a little bit of a liability late. Kawhi's nonverbal. Kyrie's a little flaky. Kevin Durant, you're never quite sure where he is. And then there's Dame and Steph and Chris Paul and LeBron. You get the same dude every night.
Yeah.
And I watch Anthony Davis. And if you ask Lakers brass privately, are you a little disappointed with what you were getting this year? This was going to be the year of the subtle baton pass. And he didn't show up. He didn't play very well. He's hurt again. You think privately they'd admit, even with a title, they're disappointed?
Yeah, look, I feel as if under the circumstances, having won a title, having a short off season, having no training camp, and I can't help but feel that the Lakers know who Anthony Davis is. And this is why, in spite of all his amazing talent, the Pelicans barely got to the playoffs, would scratch their way in. And if you are a top 5 player, as many people rate him, I don't care who you have around him, you should at least be making the playoffs. Kevin Garnett, year after year, couldn't go very far, but he damn sure made sure the Minnesota Timberwolves were at least a playoff team.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis was not capable of that in New Orleans. So simply because he came to the Lakers, and I guess I thought that winning a championship might give him a little more of that resolve.
Yeah.
Might give him a little more belief and determination in his own abilities. And while I was never convinced that the torch would be passed and he would become everything that LeBron is as far as making other guys better, I did expect that he was going to come out with something additional to prove. But the Lakers collectively have not really approached it that way. You know, they coast for 3.5 quarters, and they measure teams, and they go, you know what, if we play hard for 6 minutes, we can still put these teams away. And for the most part, that's what they've done. So I don't know that we've seen the real AD, and we certainly haven't seen the real Lakers, and yet they are still 22-9. So I'm going to reserve judgment on all of that. But to me, the big picture is AD is all that he's always been, and the championship does not appear to have made a significant change in that.
Finally, Zion is putting up historic numbers, and let's take out yesterday. It's not translated to wins. Why?
2 reasons. One, because of the way the game's being played right now. It is an offensive-oriented game. Nobody's playing great defense. And so Zion is putting up these tremendous numbers, and I love watching him play. It's just entertaining to watch a body like that move like that and finish around the rim like that. But that said, and you and I talked about this, there are stars and there are superstars. Stars get their numbers, sometimes extraordinary numbers. Superstars get their numbers and they get other people's numbers. And Zion's game doesn't really equate to creating easy opportunities for other people. You look at his assist totals, and then you go to the defensive end, and he's really not a factor there. I mean, for a guy who can move the way he can and has the leaping ability, you would think that he would be averaging less than a block shot a game. I think it's also the composition of the Pelicans in that you have a defensive-oriented coach, and where is the real leadership with this team? Again, kind of like the Celtics, they're a really good team, and they have a dynamic player like Zion, but he's a 2-point scorer in what is now a 3-point league, and he is not a factor in that aspect of the game whatsoever. And when you have both Zion and Steven Adams on the floor, you have 2 guys who are not 3-point threats whatsoever in a league that values the 3-point shot more than anything else.
Love watching the video, though. Rick Bucher, Fox Sports. Great talking to you, buddy. Thanks.
You got it, Colin.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though. You know, and I'm not one of these good old days, guys. Like, I watch the NBA, but he is really old school. It's very Barkley, it's very Karl Malone, where, Charles could shoot threes, but Charles finished at the rim a lot, and he created conflict. He would attack. D. Wade's game was largely, D. Wade's probably played bigger than anybody in the history of the league at 6'4.5". What made D. Wade's game so fun, it was so much about contact. He was like a football player playing in the NBA. Now, he hit the deck a lot because of it, probably shortened his career, but I miss guys that go right at the rim. Barkley did, Malone did, D. Wade did. It's a very old school style of play, but I do think the league now is so much about the jumper. I think sports is better when it's layered. I like running games in football. I do. I like base runners in baseball. Like, I like the layers to basketball, and I think I would love to see another 4 or 5 guys that attack the rim, don't shoot threes, and I think for 280 pounds, I've never seen a player get 40 inches off the floor faster. Not Barkley, not Malone. Just the ability to get up fast. And by the way, nobody's taking a charge from him. None of these skinny jeans guys want any. He's going to get more. He's shooting 66%.
Would you want to do that?
Oh God, no. God, no. He and Jokic in Denver. I know who's taking a charge. He's like a refrigerator.
Yeah, no,
nobody's going to get run over on Tuesday night in the NBA with that. Joy with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
The Eagles got a third-round pick and a conditional second-round pick from the Colts for Carson Wentz. But the team is reportedly not thrilled by the deal. They realized they were selling at a low point after Wentz's poor performance last season. And while they recognize they got fair market value for him, the organization is reportedly disappointed they didn't get in return what they had invested in him.
Well, maybe don't blow up the locker room.
You know how I feel about draft picks, so I think you got what you needed out of him. Look, he had an MVP level season, which very much contributed to that Super Bowl run. You got a Super Bowl while he was there, and he contributed to it. You've been relevant from the moment that you've taken him. And while yes, he struggled, and there's a lot I don't like about how things ended there. I don't like the dysfunction overall in the organization. I don't know that that's all Carson Wentz's fault. But you definitely got value out of him. I think organizations get a little wild with what they should be getting back in trades. If you wanted to get the full value out of Carson Wentz, then you shouldn't have let everything internally combust the way that it did, and you had to trade him.
Well, it's right. Like when you get a Mahomes or a Justin Herbert or a Josh Allen, and they're really just different. They just look different. They play different. They're stronger. You should worry a little less about winning trades and more about making sure you get them help. Like, I'll overpay for a guard. Because if my quarterback, Josh Allen or Herbert or Mahomes gets hurt, what's the price on that? Like, I understand when you're bad at quarterback and you're just trying to be, you're in this race to not be pathetic. But once you get kind of a star quarterback in this league, my job, I think I have a greater responsibility to elevate or protect my star quarterback than I do to win a trade. That's kind of, like, once you get LeBron in your organization, don't worry about winning trades. Get him Anthony Davis. Give the Pelicans whatever they want. Get Anthony Davis, and everything else will work itself out.
And I mean, if you're going to be aggressive, then don't sit around, talking about your regrets. Like, you went all in to get Carson Wentz. I think you got the value out of Carson Wentz. Also, there weren't a lot of buyers for Carson Wentz. No. So this is the market was dictated what you got for him.
Well, it looks like, what did they get again? They got a
third-round pick and a conditional second-round pick, depending on, I don't have the numbers in front of me.
If Carson plays a lot.
If he plays well, I think like 75%.
You'll get a first-round
pick. So you got a first and a third, essentially, for Carson Wentz.
And you got the salary off the books.
Exactly. So the Texans have not made Deshaun Watson available for a trade, but that's not stopping teams from showing interest. The Dolphins have been named as a potential destination since rumors of Watson's unhappiness in Houston began, and Miami is reportedly expected to be in the mix to acquire him if he becomes available. Fox Bet has the odds for Deshaun's Week 1 team. The Texans are still favored. Then the Panthers are the second best odds at plus 225. The Broncos are the third best odds now. Jets, 49ers, and then the Dolphins have the sixth best odds at plus 850. When I look at this list of potential places, to me the 49ers and the Dolphins are the only places I would want to go if I'm Deshaun Watson. Every other team on this list had a losing record last season. The Broncos aren't completely resetting, but, we don't know what the Panthers are going to be yet with Matt Rule. I think we both like Matt Rule and what he's done there, but they're still an unknown. The Jets obviously have a new coach. The Texans have a new coach and are a disastrous situation you're already in. 49ers and the Dolphins have the most upside if he wants to go somewhere that's a contender. I don't know that the 49ers are able to move enough things around or make enough trades to make it happen, make a significant offer.
Peter King has a story today, and Schrager told us the same thing an hour ago, that Deshaun Watson is not going to be traded. So what's interesting is Matt Stafford's off the market, Carson Wentz is off the market. According to Peter King and Schrager, Deshaun's off the market. The winner is Sam Darnold. I mean, because I don't think the Niners are going to move him. Sam Darnold's sitting there. The Bears don't have a quarterback, but they're a playoff team. Washington doesn't have a quarterback, but they're a playoff team. Marcus Mariota has been too injured. I don't think he's a dynamic thrower. When I look at this Deshaun thing, I think, Sam Darnold's a real winner here because what's on the market? Stafford's off it. Wentz is off it. According to these stories, Derek Carr's also off it because we have a story now the Colts wanted him. Who's on the market?
Who is actually on the market is,
Sam Darnold.
Schrager also said that the Jets haven't made any decisions on Sam Darnold yet, but if someone came to the Jets with a significant offer, you imagine that they wouldn't be as attached to Sam Darnold as the Texans are to Deshaun Watson. So the market may not be as dramatic because we saw what Carson Wentz got traded for. And I think we all think at this point Carson Wentz is better than Sam Darnold. At least we've seen more from Carson
Higher
Wentz.
ceiling.
Right. So someone would have to really make an aggressive offer, I think. And so to your point, he's the only one that's actually available.
Well, I mean, I talked to somebody Saturday, and I asked about this. I asked somebody who I trust, a very good source. I said, why isn't Chicago and Washington making a run on Darnold? He said, listen, Darnold is thought of very highly by the best GMs in this league. It's not that people aren't making calls. It may be the Jets haven't made a decision.
Right.
So Darnold's coachable, dynamic, inconsistent, no question, but he's a kid.
And he had Adam Gase. So we all have to put everything in perspective because we've seen what happens when people leave Adam Gase. So the Nets wrapped up a 5-game road trip with a 112-108 win over the Clippers last night. They went undefeated during their West Coast trip, even with Durant missing time due to a hamstring issue. They will return home on a 6-game win streak, which is their longest of the season, and they are only a half game out of first in the East. I thought this was a very, very significant trip for them. They are 12-4 against teams that are 500 or better this season. They have 6 players shooting over 40% from 3.
Do they really?
Kyrie, Harden, Durant, Jeff Green, Joe Harris, and Tyler Johnson are all shooting over 40% from 3. And they're second in the league in three-point field percentage, 40.5. The Clippers are the first at 42%. But we knew that they were going to be able to put up points. So were they going to be able to play any kind of defense? They're pretty much middle of the league in defense, and that's really all they really need to be. Because they're going to score every time they come down the court.
Well, and also, let's start looking at the East. So Milwaukee's not a good late-game team.
Right.
They're just not, because their best player is a liability. Philadelphia does not have enough shooting. Simmons doesn't, I mean, they really don't. Their 2 best players are not three-point specialists. Boston has limitations. They have to play a certain way. And Miami's missing another piece. You know, we always judge on championships. If Brooklyn gets to the finals in its first year, you would have to organizationally feel like that's a huge win.
Yes. I mean, that's what teams with 3 superstars should do. Now, it's not that easy to win a championship, so I don't think that the expectations of winning a championship in your first year together are really actually that realistic. But to make it to the finals, yeah, that's really what they should do. I thought the Nets were going to come out of the East before Harden was there. Now, obviously, we had a lot of questions about how this was going to work, but it's looking like it's working, and they're doing this without Durant. Obviously, these are big personalities. Harden and Durant have played together before. Kyrie and Harden haven't, but it seems like they're all playing their roles to the highest of their ability, and that's what they need to do in order to win a championship.
And they're doing what the Lakers aren't. They're shooting threes well. Lakers are really... The Lakers played the Nets recently, and the Nets got red hot from the outside, and the Lakers couldn't hit shots.
I'm concerned about the Lakers, and, you know, I love what Philadelphia is doing this year. It looks like it's all coming together, but to me, those 2 teams need to be healthy going into the playoffs.
Yeah. Good stuff. Joy of the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie
Boy,
News.
mock drafts are flying off the internet. Bucky Brooks, former NFL player and scout, joins us.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Hey loves, it's Paris Hilton, and my new podcast, This is Paris, is out now. I just wanted to do a podcast because I feel like I have so much to talk about. There's so many things that happen in my life that are so exciting. I want to be able to connect with you all. Just in the past week, I've been talking to so many of my friends, and just really just fun and interesting and hilarious and really cool people that want to be on the show. So it's just going to be so different to be the one asking questions because I'm so used to everyone asking me questions.
I've seen the guest list of people coming on this podcast. Oh my gosh. I could not get these people, so I'm really excited that I'm on this podcast with you, Paris. This is going to be an insane run. And if you guys want to listen to it, you should.
Listen to This is Paris on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What's the difference between an AMG skeptic and an AMG believer? The time it takes you to fire up the engine and hear it roar. Go to mbusa.com/AMG Mercedes AMG Driving Performance. Bucky Brooks, player, scout, now an analyst, NFL Network and Fox Sports joins us. I got questions for Bucky. So you tell me, if you ran the Jets today, because here's my theory on Zach Wilson. So I have to consider my surroundings. I got Belichick's the best defensive coach ever. Sean McDermott appears to be great. Brian Flores is a star defensive coach in the making. And I'm going to go with a Mountain West quarterback for the next 2 years. And I don't know if Robert Saleh can coach Bucky. I have no idea. I can make every argument. I'm just going to go with Darnold, a kid that's been in this league and knows the division. Isn't there a risk moving off Sam?
You can't make that argument, Colin. I think the one thing about Sam Darnold, though, is you don't get the benefit of the clock and the rookie deal. Because Sam Darnold has to get that fifth-year option, the money kicks up into the $20 million range. So that prevents you from benefiting from what you would get on the rookie contract. So you can bring Zach Wilson in, you can keep Sam Darnold, and if Sam Darnold plays at a level where you deem him to be a franchise quarterback, you can do it. But from a monetary standpoint, it just makes sense to move on, get the young quarterback, and do a complete reset at this time.
Good luck. Good luck, Zach Wilson. That's a well coached. I got a feeling in 3 years, if you move off Darnold, you're in last place because you're getting out coached every week. So with the Deshaun Watson deal, so there's a lot of stories out today. They're not going to move off him. Fine, but everything's negotiable. You're Houston. It's poisoning the locker room if he doesn't want to be there. You could get 8 picks. Is there ever a point when you'd be like, I don't want 8 picks because I can't guarantee they can play? Would you want to combine? What would you need a combination perfectly to replace Deshaun Watson?
You know, it would be hard for me to move off of Deshaun Watson for a few different reasons. One, I drafted a guy who's played like a top 5 quarterback. 2, still for the next year and a half, I got him on terms that are very, very affordable in terms of building a team around him. And so the big money doesn't kick in for another year or two. So I really don't want to move off of that. And Colin, when you go back and you do the research, because this was floating on Twitter, the starting quarterbacks drafted in the first round from 2009 to 2016, 0 of 22 are with their original teams. And so if you think about that and think about how hard it has been to identify a franchise quarterback and retain a franchise quarterback, I have one at 25. I am not trying to give that up. And so it may sound great to get 3 number 1 picks and maybe a Christian McCaffrey or a star level player, but it's so hard to find a franchise quarterback that I am reluctant to move on from Deshaun Watson, no matter how big the ransom may be based on what people may offer me.
When stories leak, whether politically or in sports, there's a reason they leak. Somebody wants them out. We've had multiple leaks talking about the Niners wanting to move off Jimmy Garoppolo. If they really wanted to, why would they put it out there? It's almost as if they're looking for something. Is it more of a commitment from him? Like, read the tea leaves for me. Why is there so much smoke on Garoppolo? Generally, if a team wants to make a trade, they keep it quiet and make the trade.
Yeah, I think there are a few different things. I think people have been able to look at the numbers and say that this is the right year for the 49ers. If they want to move off, it wouldn't crush them from a dead cap standpoint. All the money has been paid out. Secondly, when you go all the way back and you look at even the way that Jimmy Garoppolo played in their Super Bowl season, you have to wonder why in the second half when they had an opportunity to put the game in his hands, why didn't they do it? And so I think there's a little bit of, man, he's good, but we feel like we can get more. And so we saw this play out down in L.A. with the Rams. The L.A. Rams were good. They got to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff, but Sean McVay felt like they could get better. They wanted something else. And honestly, when you look around that division and you're Kyle Shanahan and you're looking around and seeing how this quarterback carousel is playing out, I think teams are saying, I need to have a top 5 quarterback to be able to get this done. I want a top 5 quarterback. I don't want to settle. That's why I feel like you're getting some of this conversation about Jimmy Garoppolo and some of these other starters. Teams are not necessarily willing to settle when they feel like better may be out there for them.
So the Tampa Bay is going to have an interesting situation. They got 5 or 6 guys, and they're going to have to make decisions. There's no way I'd move off Shaq Barrett. There's so few great pass rushers. I like Chris Godwin, but O.J. Mayo's coming back. I got a bunch of dudes at wide receiver. I got to be honest. If I had to make a decision, I'd move off Chris Godwin. I really would. Would you?
Yeah, man. I think if you value this in terms of like the positional value, pass rusher always trump wide receiver and some of those other positions. So if I had to make a choice between Shaq Barrett and Chris Godwin, I absolutely would opt for Shaq Barrett because we see what the pass rush does. Like outside of quarterback, it is all about the pass rush in the National Football League. And I've heard you mention this before, man. I don't want to say wide receivers are like running backs, but they do come down a dime a dozen. You can find them in all areas of the draft. You can find them in second stages. You don't necessarily have to have a marquee wide receiver to build a Super Bowl champion. So if I'm building a team, and I'm using it just from a philosophical standpoint, I am always going to lean towards the pass rusher over the pass catcher because the pass rusher impacts the game far more than the pass catcher does.
I can't get enough of watching that Tom Brady Super Bowl video. It just warms my heart every time I watch it. All right, Bucky Brooks, Fox Sports NFL analyst. Good seeing you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Colin.
Yeah, you also you do have to look at college football now furnishes the NFL with like 25 receivers a year, and I like Chris Godwin, but he was hurt a lot. Mike Evans is your number one. You get a tight end back. Leonard Fournette I'd move off of because of Ronald Jones, and again backs. It's interesting. Momentum's a real thing. 1 year ago, before Brady went to Tampa, we all rolled our eyes at Tampa. It was just like, goofy. Good players, but goofy. Isn't it amazing how we view Tampa today? It's like, God, I'd love to play in Tampa. That's the power of Brady. I don't think Aaron Rodgers, you could move because of his personality, move him to Tampa, and everybody would want to play with Aaron. I don't think that's his personality. Maybe Mahomes has that. But there's a real power and momentum. Look at how we viewed a year ago Tampa. It's not like Jameis Winston didn't have talent. He threw for 5,000 yards.
He also threw for the same amount of interceptions as he did touchdowns.
Yeah, no, I mean, Jameis makes mistakes, but wasn't that they lacked talent at quarterback. I look at Tampa today, and I'm like, I could see all those guys saying, I'll take a pay cut. You would have never taken a pay cut. You used to go to Tampa to just make money. You regretted it, but you're like, well, it's a cheap place to live. Now, that's the power of LeBron. The power of LeBron. Yeah, I'll go to Cleveland. I'll win a title. I just look at Tampa differently today. 1 year ago, they were a circus. I remember the day we were on together. I'm like, Joey, I just got news. He's going to Tampa. And I was like, well, they've got weapons. But it's just, today I think of them as an elite landing spot for anybody that wants to play. Cremo Barber Shave Cream gives you that close, comfortable shave. It fights beard itch. It's available at major retailers, Amazon.com, and CremoCompany.com. I love their stuff.
Two-time super middleweight world champion Anthony the Dog Durrell returns and will face off against the rising Chiron Shut It Down Davis. Don't miss the action Saturday on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
If you got 30 minutes, SimplySafeColin.com. Customize and get a free security camera. SimplySafeColin.com. So, Pro Football Focus senior analyst Bruce Gradkowski, this is what he does. He looks at tape, he looks at numbers, and it's been interesting. You get into this off season with quarterbacks, and teams have to make decisions, and Bruce is now joining us live. So, I want to talk about Big Ben for a while. Their GM came out last week and gave a very lukewarm response to Ben. And as you know, as quarterbacks get older, Drew Brees struggled later in a year. There's a big difference. Ben was pretty effective early. As the season went on, that body doesn't react the same way, and he had an ugly last 5 games. What do the numbers say on what Big Ben is today?
Well, I mean, you're right, Colin, and there's a reason Ben led the league with the most pass attempts out of the shotgun, 640. Most pass attempts under 10 yards. There's a reason this offense was 26th in pass play, explosive pass play percentage for us at PFF. So this offense needs a remake. So whether Ben's back or not, this offense needs some shaking up. It needs some shifts. It needs some motion. It needs some play action pass. They're one of the last in the league with the most play action pass, and Ben was probably one of the worst quarterbacks in that area. So there is room to develop for this offense. Now, when it comes to Ben and the Steelers, look, what he has done at Pittsburgh has been remarkable. just the backyard type football player he is. Just give him a ball and let him play. I've never been around a guy like that. I mean, the closest probably Jeff Garcia, definitely not on Ben's level, but just a guy that has a knack to play football and make plays. We'll see what happens. You know the Rooneys, you know that Steelers organization. They let guys play a little longer than maybe, Hines Ward, Troy Polamalu, Jerome Bettis. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But, man, that offense definitely has to develop more explosive plays next season.
Derek Carr, apparently stories now, the Colts, Chris Ballard called the Raiders. They said no thanks. I understand when people look at Carr. He's not dynamic physically. His arm is good, not special. He's mobile, but not a great athlete. But what does he do well and what does he not do well? When you look at the PFF grades, where do you put him in this league?
Well, I mean, he's a top 10 grader for us at PFF. In this past season, he more than doubled his big-time throws. And a lot of people would give Carr a hard time for getting to the check down too quick.
Yeah.
Not this season, man. He ripped the Chiefs apart. I mean, realistically, it was really the only Chiefs' main loss during the regular season. Besides that Week 17 matchup, Mahomes didn't play. So you look at this offense and what they're able to do. If they can now surround Carr with a good defense, I love the hire of Gus Bradley. So we'll see. But I think Carr's a top 10 guy, and he played that way last year. He just has to make a few more plays like that with his legs, and that'll keep John Gruden a little excited and get him happy. But Carr, with his arm and his physical tools, he can get it done.
Sam Darnold. How much is the staff? How much is Sam? What does he do you like? And what does Sam Darnold do that would concern you if you're out to get a quarterback and you're interested in Sam Darnold?
Well, look, they had the second lowest graded receiving unit in New York last year with the Jets. The defense, second lowest coverage unit in the past 7 decades. So it's been pretty bad as a football team. But, Darnold also hasn't helped much, right? I mean, I love the guy as far as his toughness. He's a good teammate, a great person. He's going to work hard. But in a clean pocket, Colin, that's when you got to execute. If you're clean and you have time, you have to make the plays, and that's where he has struggled. Look, his overall passing grade, man, the only one worse than him the past 3 years is Mitchell Trubisky. So there is room for improvement. I do think he can improve because I like his physical tools. I like he can make plays on the run. But in that clean pocket, when things are right around him, he has to be better, and that's one of my main concerns with Sam Darnold.
Carson Wentz, are his flaws correctable? He lost. His accuracy was at times abysmal last year. Again, of his issues, what does PFF think are correctable? Or there's some trends over 3 or 4 years that he's not simply good at certain aspects of quarterback play.
Well, Colin, you know us quarterbacks, you and I talked offline, we're high maintenance. We need some TLC.
Yes.
So I think that's what Carson Wentz needs right now. I think it's perfect, him going back to Frank Wright. But where he was phenomenal in 2017 was on 3rd and 4th down. I mean, his grade for us was 91.9 or something. And every other year, he never reached above a 75 PFF grade on 3rd and 4th down. So team him back up with Frank Wright. The situational football, can he play better? He's not going to get back to that level because it's hard. Those critical situations, those aren't stable metrics for us. But I think Carson Wentz, man, if you give him a little TLC, if you build that confidence, coach him hard, he has to, sometimes these young quarterbacks, Colin, they try to see too much. And now when you get in a little slump, now you're missing throws, now your confidence is down. This is great for him, just a fresh start. He needs it. But I don't expect to see him back in 2017 form, but I do expect him to play a lot better, and especially under Frank Wright. I think Wright does an unbelievable job with quarterbacks and also just was as a team leader, and what he's done in Indy so far has been fun to watch.
Listen, we all know Brady's great. When it was all said and done, and, when you just looked at what Brady did his grades end up being, he was struggling on the deep ball for a while, but it was all said and done. Was Tom on historic highs, or where was Brady when it was all over?
Man, Colin, I'm glad you're doing well, too. I saw what happened around the Super Bowl time. So if you need me to take your place skiing, just let me know. I'll take that plane ticket out of Toledo, Ohio, man. I'd be happy to do that. But Tom Brady, he led us with most big-time throws throughout the playoffs. I think that football team, after the bye week, they really figured out who they were. That play-action pass, getting Brady back under center, the guy really did play phenomenal. He was nailing it 20-plus yards downfield. He was playing efficient. And physically, to me, just watching the tape, he looks good physically. I mean, he showed no signs of slowing down, and we're waiting for that moment. But, man, that Tampa Sun, you're in the L.A., you're spoiled. You got that I got that warm blood over here in Toledo. That Sun did him justice, and you could tell physically he still looks good. And I'm happy for him. What a story, man, because more than the X's and O's, I think it's what he brings in that locker room and how guys see him prepare. It's just amazing to watch his career and that he did it again.
Yeah, Bruce Grabkowski, a Pro Football Focus senior analyst. Always great to have you on the show. We appreciate the data, my man.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Have a good week.
Hi, it's Laverne Cox, and on my new podcast, The Laverne Cox Show, we're ripping the Band-Aid off trauma resilience, dating, diet culture, dating, white supremacy, dating.
Okay, I'm not gonna get explicit, but just because you cute, like I'm not going to.
I know what you were gonna say. Yes, girl. And honey, we have a lot of fun along the way.
You have a lot of lesbian fans who love your femininity and glamour, and they just really, really want you.
And I want us to talk openly about the difficult things we all face as humans, and as humans in America.
Racist white people in the United States will sign their own death certificates. They will vote for policies that crush them, no safety nets, no health care, because they feel too much like entitlements, and those are folks of color, right?
Listen to the Laverne Cox Show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe and share.
Yeah. All right, Justin Turner of the Dodgers scheduled to be on spring training. Does spring training start today? Start this week? So pitchers and catchers reported the past week. What if every sport did that? All right, guards and bigs report today. Forwards next week. That's just the way baseball works. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
The Patriots haven't made a decision on whether they will bring back Cam Newton for a second season, but if they do decide to move on, Cam will look for another opportunity and says he has no plans to retire.
My pride won't even allow me to do that. Listen, bro, there's not 32 guys better than me. Put it like that. So you're asking
Where you at?
Bro, I'm not 32.
Well, he is right. Of the 35 qualified quarterbacks this season, the bottom 15 according to Pro Football Focus.
The bottom 15.
Bottom 15. Jared Goff is 21. Cam Newton is 22. Below him is Andy Dalton, Ben Roethlisberger, Gardner Minshew, Nick Foles, Alex Smith, Teddy Bridgewater, Tua, Carson Wentz at 30. Drew Lock, Mitchell Trubisky, Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, and Dwayne Haskins is at 35. So he's not even close to the bottom.
They were 11-0 at one point, and Big Ben's in that group. So when
Big Ben is 2 slots below him.
Below Cam.
Yeah, according to Pro Football Focus.
Well, I mean, Cam still moves. Cam's still in the RPO stuff, still elite.
I mean,
still
he had 65.8 completion percentage,
Cam did?
2,657 yards.
So Cam completed 65% of his throws. I'm
Almost
actually
60
shocked by
almost
that.
66.
Who did he throw to?
No one. He had 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and had 592 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns. So yes, he can still move.
I am surprised by that. He completed 66% of his throws. I mean, literally, they don't have a functional tight end. That's a good number.
He also talked about how COVID really affected him, missing those games and being out with COVID in the middle of the season.
So Lamar, yeah.
I think that he will. I actually think that it makes the most sense for the Patriots to bring back Cam Newton. Now that I think about the situation that the Patriots are in,
Second
he
year.
may do better in his second year in the system. Since they have the 15th pick, I actually wouldn't hate if they used it on a quarterback and had the young quarterback come in with Cam Newton there. Cam Newton's not expensive.
By the way, they're not going to pay Cam anything. They have a ton of salary cap. They may move Stephon Gilmore. The reality is, I know they're frugal, but just on the draft opt-ins, Cam's second year, and a little cap space, They went 7-9.
We act like they didn't win a game this season.
It's not impossible to believe that they're. I mean, just is it 10-6?
Yeah, I don't think they're a playoff team, and I don't think they'll win the division. But yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, we're not looking at the whole picture when we talk about Cam Newton. Like, there were 8 opt-outs, some very significant this season. He got COVID in the middle of the season, which clearly affected him. They don't have a lot of weapons. They're going to have to make some moves this offseason. And I think when we think of the Patriots, we just think of them as such a stable dynasty franchise, as we should from the past 2 decades. But they're not in that situation anymore. So what do you do? Do you make an aggressive move for a quarterback that's on the market? Like, Sam Darnold's not going to the Patriots. Like, he's the best option we think is available at this point. And I don't think they're going to get Deshaun Watson. I actually think bringing Cam back for another year and second year in the system, you get the 8 opt-ins back, make some moves this offseason, and maybe you do draft the quarterback of the future, and he doesn't have to start right now. You can learn a little bit. So the Bucs have their work cut out for them in free agency if they want to keep their Super Bowl team together. They have 8 notable free agents this year and have made it clear they want to keep as many as possible. Bruce Arians said they're hoping to sign 5 or 6 of these guys in order to keep the closeness and accountability they have in the locker room. We're showing them now: Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette, Levante David, Shaq Barrett, and Ndamukong Suh, and Ryan Suckup are all free agents.
Okay, so Levante David and Shaq Barrett, I'm just paying whatever I have to. Everybody else is negotiable. I can move off everybody else.
Well, Gronk and Antonio Brown likely aren't going to play anywhere else, so they'll probably take whatever deal. If they want to come back another year, they'll probably take whatever deal the Bucs offer them. There's not going to be a big market for Antonio Brown, even though he did keep it together this season. Most teams are going to assume that that's because of Tom Brady.
Right.
And there's only one Tom Brady. I don't think Gronk wants to play anywhere else. If he does want to keep playing, it's not like he needs the money at all. So if he does want to come back another year, I imagine he's going to be on a reasonable deal as well. I agree. Levante David and Shaq Barrett. I mean, Ndamukong Suh is significant as well. My guess is that Chris Godwin and Leonard Fournette are not there next year.
That makes sense to me. I'm not giving up Shaq Barrett. There's no way. Pass rushers are gold bars. He's the one. Levante David and Barrett, to me, you could get another linebacker, but Barrett is so effective getting to the quarterback. There's about 8 guys in the league. They were just born to be pass rushers, and he's one of them.
I think that we've learned that Tom Brady can make it work with a lot. But when we talk about that Super Bowl, we're going to give Tom Brady a lot of credit. They won because of that defense. So if I'm the Buccaneers, I'm concerned. My number 1 priority is keeping as much of that defense together as possible. I mean, Patrick Mahomes didn't throw a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. Keep that defense intact. Tom Brady can figure things out on the other side of the ball. So the Lakers have lost 3 of their last 4 games since Anthony Davis suffered a calf strain. In their loss to the Heat this weekend, LeBron scored 19 points on 7 of 21 shooting, which is his worst shooting percentage of the season. And they're struggling to get out of this slump, and LeBron says he knows it's on him to step up without AD.
Well, I think that's what it all boils down to, and right now is another challenge for me to be able to adjust. Not having AD for a long period of time is something that we haven't had over the last year and a half, and now it's time for me to adjust again and see ways I can be even more effective to help this team win ball games. That is the sport that we're in. We're in the winning business, and I've always been a winner, so it's time to click into that.
Now, once again, LeBron puts the entire world on his shoulders.
I don't know about putting this on LeBron.
No, they're just not shooting well. They're just not. It's not remember last year, our big concern was they don't have enough shooters, and they kind of won the finals on health and defense.
They were 1 of 13 from 3-point range in the fourth quarter. At 13 of 45 attempts.
But Schroeder didn't play either, so that...
Yeah, I actually think that we're not giving enough credit to Schroeder in this situation. Like, obviously, Anthony Davis is significant, and he's a superstar. You want him out there. But Schroeder missed the last 2 games due to COVID protocol. He'll miss the next 2. So it's not that he's unhealthy, but he's out for COVID protocol. But he's averaging 14.2 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 4.3 assists per game as well. So... missing Schroeder and Anthony Davis is significant. You got to shoot better, obviously, but this can't all be on LeBron James. Like, if LeBron James isn't shooting well, I'm going to give him a pass in this situation because he's having to do everything with Anthony Davis and Schroeder being out. But I don't think that home court advantage matters that much in the playoffs, so I think it's a priority for the Lakers to get Anthony Davis 100% healthy. And I got to be honest, I don't know if anyone's really surprised that this is what they're dealing with Anthony Davis in this situation. Like, the bubble wasn't that long ago. Every team that went deep in the bubble was struggling with injuries this season. It's not terribly surprising that Anthony Davis would not be completely healthy at this point.
If I wanted to go to a Laker game right now, I wouldn't be allowed in, would I?
You may be able to, but I wouldn't tell anyone that you're there. No, you got there's
no fans.
This is in California.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. What if I went with a notebook and I said I was working?
Oh, you were
working
going to go as
media.
a working reporter?
I'd bring a pen. Like if I said I was a working
I think
reporter.
you'd have to get credentialed and go through the protocols. But I don't know how many people they're actually allowing in there to cover the game as well. But yeah. No,
So America's media honesty broker could not go to a Laker game.
I don't feel like I have the authority to answer that question completely, but based off of the information that I currently have, my guess would be no.
Our legislators need to lighten up. A little. I'm America's honesty broker. If I'm not covering the Lakers, who's giving you the scoop?
You are not. You've never covered the Lakers. You've gone to a Lakers game with a notepad and gone into at any point in your career.
I don't need a notepad. It's called space. My parking garage above my
eyes. Have you ever been in have you had to go into an NBA locker room and ask questions before?
Oh no! Last time I was in a Lakers locker room, one of the players told me he hated me.
Are you gonna tell us who?
Dwight Howard. And he said it smiling. I said, put on a towel and you don't hate me. The late Kobe was always great to me. Actually, everybody.
Were you in the locker room? You were reporting. You were legitimately asking questions. Or you were hanging out.
Yeah, I had to pretend. I don't listen. I get my. I would say I go into locker rooms infrequently now, but I do communicate with guys through their agents or through them or.
Yeah, I don't think you actually need to be in the locker room.
The locker rooms are awful.
I've never wanted to be.
They're just awful.
That type of reporter.
By the way, these days in shoot around, if I go, what I always do, I always go early to games. So I'll get there an hour and a half early, and when they come out, like a player would come over and say, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Yeah, but Colin, you're misrepresenting your presence at this game. You're like sitting courtside or in great seats, hanging out early. You're not like going to shoot around like a beat reporter. You don't have your credential on. You're there as a citizen.
You know what my credential is? My face. So obnoxious. I am so obnoxious. All right, I just miss going. I want to go to the. I would like to go to a game.
No, I hear you. I really want to. I want to go to a Dodgers game too. Dodgers game's the best.
That stadium, they do the food and drink right too.
So romantic.
God,
I miss the garlic fries and not being able to talk to anybody for a week after eating them.
Oh, they figured the food stuff out. That place has good food. You could eat dinner at that baseball stadium.
Yeah.
Justin Turner's around the corner.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Hi, this is Bill Clinton. Please join me on my podcast, Why Am I Telling You This?
Why am I telling you this? Why am I telling you this?
For conversations with some of the most fascinating people I know. We'll talk about ideas that deserve more attention, about how science, technology, and design are improving our lives, and about why we should be hopeful and optimistic about our future. Listen to Why Am I Telling You This on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
When weather's bad, you need good wipers. Michelin Endurance XT silicone wiper blades. Designed to last 2 times longer than other blades. Justin Turner, if you'd never seen him play baseball, you could describe him by just saying he's the juice of the Dodgers. For all their talent and all their arms and all their history, he is their energy. He is their juice. And there was a moment this offseason, people thought he may go, and then they smarted up and gave him a big fat contract. And Justin Turner of the Dodgers, the World Series champ, is now joining us now live. By the way, I have facial hair for the first time in my life, and you are nothing but facial hair. And it looks great on you. It looks like hell on me. So, is it your superpower?
Well, you know what? I'd say it looks pretty good on you. I like that look, Colin. I've seen you, and it's the first time I've ever seen you with a stash. The stash is a little more prominent than everything else, but it is good, and it is my superpower, I guess you can say. I I always shorten it up right before spring training and then kind of let it go and have a mind of its own throughout the season. And usually it gets nice and big and full just in time for October.
Listen, you are I grew up watching the Dodgers in the '70s. You lead them in playoff home runs, hits, runs, games. And it's interesting when there was talk about, because this is there's a lot of guys getting paid here. Was there a moment where you thought, oh hell, I'm not coming back? Were you ever concerned?
Yeah, there was a couple moments where I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and obviously, the process was good for me. It all worked out in the end, but it felt like this was the shortest, longest off season I've ever had in my life. So it took a while to get there. A couple things happened where it put some serious question marks in my mind as to whether or not I was going to be back in Dodger blue, but like I said, it all worked out in the end. I'm happy to be here, and this is where I'm supposed to be.
Listen, it's a mostly young team. You got your Seagers, your Walker Buehlers, Cody Bellinger. It's a young team. You've been in this sport for 12 years now at the big league level. Do you consider yourself a leader? Do you ever sense that, or do you need to be? Do you want to be? How do you feel about that?
I take a lot of pride in being a guy that my teammates can come to and talk to and have conversations with, or if stuff's going a little sideways, to be able to step in and have some talks with guys. But, here with the Dodgers, it's such a great culture. It's such a great atmosphere to be in. We really take pride in letting guys be themselves and being who they are and not trying to change them. So the analogy I always use is I try to be like the bumpers on a bowling lane, right? We want guys to keep moving forward down the lane, and if they start going towards the gutter, I try to be that bumper. I try to be that bumper that helps them, find at least one pin.
Thank God most Dodgers don't end up in the gutter. Justin Turner's joining us. You are a rare player, and this is really rare. You hit better in the postseason than the regular season. Now, it's close, but that is rare. You're facing better pitchers. There's more pressure. There's more situational pitching. Pitching changes. But you come across as incredibly loose as a player. You're just playing. And I've seen guys who are great. A-Rod, and he was a different batter in the postseason. How do you keep the mindset in these pressure situations? How do you stay loose at the plate?
Yeah, I think I was extremely fortunate to spend a lot of time with Dr. Ken Revisa. He was a sports psychologist at Cal State Fullerton in the 4 years I was there, and really spent a lot of time with him working on the mental side of baseball. And I think it really is a big part of our game. Everyone has talent. Everyone can go out there and really play, but being able to control what's in between your ears, I think, is what sets guys apart. And, when you get in those moments in the postseason, and I guess not so much last year, but in years past, when the crowd's going crazy and there's a lot of energy and it's a big spot, it's so easy for your heart rate to start pounding. You feel like your heart's going to beat out of your chest, and being able to have the tools to slow yourself down and control your breathing, to relax your eyes and be able to make good decisions at the plate, I think is crucial.
By the way, I was just seeing this. I'm going to play a trivia game with you. Here we go. You're going to think I'm a jerk for doing this, but I thought it was funny. First of all, which pitcher do you have the most career home runs against? He's pretty good.
Oh, most career home runs against? I don't know.
He's got good stuff. He's a little temperamental.
Bumgarner?
Boom!
Maybe? I don't know.
Boom!
Yeah.
Okay, now here's the bad one. Who have you faced the most and never gotten a hit off of? And he's pretty good too. He's a Hall of Famer.
The most and never got a hit off of?
11 at bats.
Cliff Lee?
Oh, Cliff Lee, the old left-hander. No. Justin Verlander.
Oh, man, yeah. I haven't sniffed a hit off that guy.
Well, you sniffed a hit. You sniffed a hit off everybody. So this Dodger team, they go out and get Trevor Bauer, Mookie Betts. It's just insane. Now you're World Series champs, Justin. Do you sense a little bit of, okay, you've seen teams win the World Series, now the pressure's on, and teams play differently. Are you at all concerned that you guys are now a overwhelming National League favorite? Can you sense that?
I think it's pretty similar to every year we come in here for spring training. I think our front office does such a great job of accumulating talent and putting a group in the room that we think has a chance to win a World Series every single year. So this year is no different. Obviously, a lot of great players, added some very nice pieces to the roster, and we're looking forward to making another deep run and bringing another championship to LA. So I don't think it's that different from any other year.
How long did it take for you to play with Mookie Betts and go, oh my God, he's good? I mean, how many games? Was there like an epiphany? Was there a moment where you're... Because I think he's such a 1970s, 80s player. He's just he does everything. He's just an athlete who does everything well. When, as a great player yourself, was there a moment you're like, okay, we're different with him?
Well, it didn't take long to figure out what he was all about. But, I mean, I've played against Mookie for a few years now, so I always knew how great of a player he was. But getting to see him, in our clubhouse, and I think it was a big story last year. On day one, he got in front of the team and basically challenged us to practice better and be better in our workouts and be better in our drills and, kind of set the tone that, hey, we're not going to show up and take things for granted. We're going to work hard. We're going to be accountable when we make mistakes. And he put together a little program where anytime you made an error, you had to put $20 in the pot. So it put a little pressure on guys to practice better. And from day one, you kind of got the sense of what he was all about. And then obviously, you just watch him on a daily basis, and the way he can change a baseball game is incredible, whether that's in the outfield or making incredible throws or on the bases. The guy, I don't know if this is a stat or not, but I don't think I've ever played with a guy who's better being on third base with the infield in and getting jumps on ground balls and scoring runs. I mean, routine ground ball to a second baseman, first baseman, he's beating it. It happened in the World Series. So actually, it tied up the game, the deciding game of the World Series. So he just is on a whole nother level on ways he can help us win ball games.
What a pleasure to have you on. We're going to go. I keep telling Joy, Dodger Stadium is such a throwback. It's you never eat the food there, but the food and the drink, it ain't cheap, but it's so good. It's such a great stadium to play in. I want to get fans back in the stadium because it's such a it's a throwback classic stadium, and it must be amazing to play there. And Justin, you're a credit to the sport. I'd love to have you on again. It's a long season, and when you get a break and you ever want to promote anything, come on our show again, buddy.
Hey, anytime you want me on, I'm a big fan. I listen all the time. So anytime you want me on, I'm here.
All right, Justin Turner, World Series champ. It's amazing. He leads the Dodgers. Think about how great the Dodgers have been for years. He leads them. First of all, they've won the National League West every year he's been there. He was our leading hitter last year, 307. The Dodgers franchise playoff records in home runs, hits, runs, RBIs in games. They've had Garvey and Ron Cey and Bill Russell and Dave Lopes and, they've had a million All-Stars. He's playing with, multiple. He is a great baseball player. And like the rest of America, loves our show. Go to mdriveformen.com today. Free shipping, 60-day money-back guarantee. Don't let age beat you. Joy, it was great to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
It is great to be back. It'd be nice if our state would lighten up a little. Sheesh Louise. Great to have you back.